Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Cultural Studies Podcast. My name is Toby Miller, and my guest today is
Lucy Fisher. I'm Distinguished Professor Emerita of Film and Media Studies from the University of Pittsburgh.
and wonderful to be with you, Prof. Really fantastic. I'm just dealing with the podcat who, as part of his jealousy evinced towards my attention to you, being given to you, is trying to, in a sense, remove a number of items from my desk: glasses, pad, pen. And
Yeah.
I wear glasses only for reading and writing. I don't need them to see you, but he will not permit this. So he can remove them with either his teeth or his paws.
Wow.
And
Right.
that's just it. I can't work. I have to go out to a coffee shop.
Yeah, I know that my dog, when I'm on the telephone, my dog starts playing with toys and putting things that obstruct my movement in various ways. They really perceive this. They perceive that attention is not being paid to them.
The
They're
the
spoiled,
the other
basically.
cat fancies herself more as a writer. So she's not interested in obstructing me in terms of my glasses. She wants to type. And she,
Hmm.
on one occasion, managed to get rid of 300 email messages, many of which I'd not read. But she makes these combinations of keys do things that I can't comprehend.
Right.
Anyway,
Well, cats don't get up on tables. I mean, dogs don't. So
dogs
that's
don't.
one
No,
benefit.
that's true. That's true.
Only benefit.
Well, they're all wonderful companions. Where I was
They
the
are.
other day, I was watching an MGM Plus TV series
Uh-huh.
uh, today, and they've still got the great lion roaring, although it's now
Yeah,
perhaps
right.
not the same lion as it was in the 20s. And these two really respond, especially the golden one. They
Wow.
really respond. I mean, the little ears go up, the eyes shine, and everything.
Wow.
That is
That's
fantastic.
interesting. Yeah.
Now, Prof, I've got a set of questions that I pose to all my guests, which is to inquire as to what's currently dynamizing, impeding, interesting, preoccupying you. What's going on?
Okay. In terms of dynamizing, I'm still teaching, although in a kind of reduced, truncated fashion. I'm teaching often in sort of adult contexts, sort of continuing education for adults, which the courses are, 5 weeks instead of 14 weeks. Usually there's not homework and grading. I kind of call it teaching without the pain, you're relieved of. And the people are really interesting. First of all, they have long memories. So they don't consider that if you assign, a film from 1940, that it's like, what are you doing? This is ancient history. So I've been doing that, and it gives me the interaction with people that I like. Teaching, I've always enjoyed really teaching. I spend a lot of time preparing for teaching, no matter what the context. I don't consider that, because it's not a strictly academic context, that it's a throwaway. I spend as much time as I ever did. And what happens is that, because in a lot of these contexts, I've first assigned the film to be streamed, and then, we have like an hour and a half class to talk about it. So many of the films that I want to teach, you can't stream anymore. It's really the most frustrating thing.
Oh,
Or, maybe they're on a subscription kind of platform, but, you can't ask these people to subscribe to five different things for
right.
a class. So it forces me to go looking for new films to teach, which means that I'm screening a lot of new stuff that is streamable. But for me, for example, I'm teaching in the fall contemporary Asian film class. I mean, just five. And the Indian film that I've wanted to teach, I teach sort of independent Indian films. The one that I love is called Dobie Ghat, or Mumbai Diaries, and it's not streamable anymore. So I've been streaming a lot of Indian films to see whether any of them would work for teaching. So that keeps me going intellectually. That's one
Mm,
thing that keeps me
mm.
going intellectually without teaching a traditional kind of academic course. And I've done, contemporary European film, Asian film. I've done courses on film comedy, on film and history, film and the body, stardom in film. So I take often the kinds of courses that I've taught on the undergraduate or graduate level and, shrink them down and sort of work with what films I think will work. Now, I've taken a kind of break for the moment. My last published book is just a year ago, which is The Cinema of Converging Lives with Oxford, about narrative films that have often strangers who meet in some particular way, which was a kind of trope that fascinated me for a long time. I found myself often really interested in those kinds of films. So for years, I was working on that. And right now, I've kind of taken a break from hardcore writing, though it seems like a kind of lack for me in that I consider myself a writer. I've written a lot, and I realize that I love writing. So I don't know if this will ever turn into a book, but for years I've been fascinated with the year 1959 in cinema. Because it's the beginning of the French New Wave. It's the beginning of the, British kind of what do they call it? Kitchen sink
Yeah.
cinema. In Indian film, you have like the world of Apu, kind of trilogy. You even have in the British comedy, Peter Sellers, The Mouse That Roared. In American film, you have kind of Shadows, John Cassavetes, which was a very cutting edge sort of American indie film. And you have a lot, I don't have particularly in mind which American avant-garde films were made in 1959, but people like Brakhage and others, Broughton, were already making a lot of films in that period of time. In Japanese cinema in 59, Floating Weeds by Ozu, Drunken Angels by Kurosawa, even the new Polish cinema was beginning to happen. And, in American film, you have kind of North by Northwest, you have Rio Bravo, Some Like It Hot. I always think of that being one of the most important films of 1959 in that it kind of harkens the sexual revolution in some ways. It's still more progressive as a film about gender, sexuality than almost, than a lot of the films made. You have On the Beach about nuclear war, Diary of Anne, all of these films that seem either to reflect something about important things about the historical moment. You have the kind of solidification of color in film for, big sort of A movie, A pictures. So I don't know if, it's a kind of a hard, there aren't, I've looked and there's maybe only one book that I could find that really focuses on a single year. And that was only on 5 films from 1967 as kind of a harbinger to the new American kind of cinema. So I don't know if I will pursue that. I only pursue things that really, really interest me. And I have to find, like in the French New Wave, it was 400 Blows, Hiroshima, Mon Amour. I mean, oh my God. Those films are so, and for me, because I have both the interest in cultural studies, social history, feminism, but for me, I have to love the works and I have to find them interesting enough to discuss, not simply in terms of plot. I still have a very strong aesthetic kind of impulse.
Mm.
So for me, um, there are a lot of films in that year that, for me, are really strong in that respect. So I don't know whether I kept saying, that the Cinema Converging Lives was my last book. I've written 10 monographs, enough, but I miss writing.
Mm,
I really like to write. I don't like, I've gotten more impatient with the process of academic writing. I mean, and the copy editing has gotten bad.
mhm.
The fact that you have to pay for your own index, that, you know, it's not a very happy kind of situation. But I don't know if there would be any way to make this a less academic book and uh, sort of change the market somewhat. So those are the things that are right now kind of, challenging me in some ways. As far as interesting me, however, this is something that you would know a lot about. I'm absolutely addicted to two categories of television series. One is spy kind of TV
Slow
series.
horse,
What?
slow horses,
Oh, slow horses, please be
incredible.
still my heart.
I
It's
know.
not here, it's not coming on again until September, but I love that series.
Same in
Absolutely.
Mexico. I know. I know. Every person I know who's seen it is just completely cathected onto it. It's astonishing. Everything about it is brilliant. I mean, from the minor roles to the leads,
Oh, Gary Oldman is
incredible acting. He is
unbelievable.
incredible. And Kristen Scott Thomas, you know, that so sort of
Yeah,
icy look that she gives and the
right,
dynamic between them is just fantastic.
right. But I've also watched, what else have I watched? I wrote some. I'm now also watching old MI5 spooks. I don't
Oh
know
yeah,
if you
it was renamed in the US for
It
racial.
was renamed Spooks. When I sign on to it, it says MI5, but then it says Spooks.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's very old, so I'm
yeah.
still on the very old
Oh,
ones.
it's
But it's
great.
like 10 seasons of it. But I like even the
And you
old
know,
ones.
there's a movie. They made a movie,
Oh, did they?
yeah, which actually I rewatched the other day after the last season. So I
And
forget
it
the name of
was,
the film, but it's really worth watching.
oh, okay.
Harry is still the star, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, right.
he's
Oh,
in,
Harry, right. The head
yeah,
of
I
the
mean, Harry is a
office.
sort of constant. As
Yes.
people are blown up or
Yeah,
disappear.
I just watched one where they're doing a drill, but then the drill seems to be real, and they're convinced that the whole of the, that the royal family is done in, and all of the parliament is done in. But also, there, some of the night manager and the
Um,
Israeli Fauda, the Americans. But then the other category are just police procedurals. I
right.
mean, but mostly British. I don't know why I'm like, I guess I think they're just better. I mean,
Well, the point is they're not under pressure to produce 30 a year in the way that
mhm.
the network television model requires. I mean, one reason why Monty Python is and Fawlty Towers were good is that they did 6 episodes a year for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, that's
Whereas,
right.
even though it's a bit different now, but with network television comedy
Right.
or drama, you're supposed to produce what, 35, 36 episodes a year. I mean, it's incredible pressure. It's no wonder that they're such rubbish, even when they've got good writers on them.
Yeah, I know. So it's like sometimes I think I'm British. I know more British actors, television actors anyway, than I do American, and in fact, yeah, in in Spooks, a very young Nicola Walker appears, almost
I
unrecognizable, but I could recognize her, and so I mean on that I watched what did I watch? Line of Duty, Happy Valley, Wallander, Broadchurch, Endeavor, The Tunnel, Vera, Luther, Unforgotten. I'm
Oh,
absolutely
Unforgotten is amazing, isn't it?
I know. So, and I kind of wonder why, I'm so obsessed with these. dramas, but also I don't really want to write about them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's mostly plot. It's not like I'm a very visual person, and so to me, part of what I love about cinema versus most television is that it's so complicated and it can be so complex. So for all the time I spent with this stuff, I should be I should be like publishing, but I really enjoy them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I
and
agree. I mean, I think that the ones you've listed, I've watched all of them. I may not have watched every
yeah,
episode, but I've watched all of them, and I think they're terrific. And I really do think it's the old Leninist problem of overproduction under capitalism.
yeah,
Something successful, so let's do 55,000 versions of it.
yeah,
And
right.
I mean, one of the things that's remarkable about your list of films from 59 is that
Yeah,
it's not like that. But the things that are, for example, within the Hollywood system, in inverted commas, like North by Northwest and Rio,
yeah,
are instances when there is an authorial signature, you know,
yes.
whether it's Hawks or Hitchcock or Angie Dickinson and Dean Martin. For that.
Yeah, right, right. This is a pillow talk. I didn't mention that, but
Oh,
you know,
pillow talk from
I
50.
think it's 59 too.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think I'm pretty
okay.
sure it is. So, I mean,
So
you've
those
got,
comedies get going then, don't they? So in inverted.
yeah, but you've got Some Like It Hot and Pillow Talk. I mean,
Right, right,
two
right.
opposite ends of the sort of moral spectrum there
Yeah.
in some ways. But so it's yeah, so it's interested. I mean, all of this interests me. I mean, I know the kind of dime store psychology about all of these kind of shows, which is that it's chaos, but you like them because somebody solves the problem, and so it satisfies you. You know, but, and I don't like serial killers, and I don't like sort of really grotesque. Examples like torture, killers who torture and that sort of stuff. I can't stand that. But most of these don't sort of emphasize the blood and guts of it. It's more about the problem solving. And so, and the other thing that has interested me lately, I was on the undergraduate level an English major because I'm old enough to have not been able to study film
Right.
on the undergraduate level, right? Um, I think I loved literature for some of the same reasons that I love film, which is, I loved the art of it. I loved language. Uh, I also thought that I was going to learn all about life from literature, which was, unfortunately, I did not. But um, what's happened lately is I've gotten back into just reading fiction. I
Mm.
still just love fiction. I have a sister, for example, who likes nonfiction because she feels like she learned something from nonfiction. But I always feel like I learned something from fiction. I can't tell you what it is exactly. So I've been reading a lot of fiction. I've read lately John of John about an Irish coastal town and kind of homosexuality and some works by Rachel Cusk outline, Elizabeth Strout novel. Just, I'm in a couple of book clubs,
Uh-huh.
which kind of forces you to, sometimes I like what people choose, sometimes I don't. But I'm enjoying getting back to literature as well. You know,
Wonderful. Wonderful. Actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that and you mentioned writing. Um, Not because of a direct connection when it comes to themes or structure or even thinking, but if I'm having any kind of trouble writing, reading a novel is the cure.
no kidding. And why is that, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, these things are
Mhm.
mysterious, aren't they? They're just it's moving into another world that isn't academic, that isn't
Mhm.
trying to be smart, that isn't trying to make a point necessarily. Um,
Yeah.
I'm reading this sort of really appalling feminist anti-hero trilogy at the moment called Mad, Bad, and Dangerous to Know.
Okay.
The first one's called Mad, and obviously this is Lady Caroline Lamb about Byron. originally, right? First one's called Mad, the second one's called Bad. I'm halfway through it. And the woman who writes them, because they're full of really inappropriate femininity and very raunchy sex, she says, she has a lovely note saying, "Dear Mum and Dad, if you start reading this, please stop. Wait till the movie comes out. It won't
That's
annoy you as
that,
much."
why? Because there'll be censorship. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they would have to be.
Yeah. Yeah, unless it's X-rated or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, but these are actually sort of not mass market novels, but they're the step below. They get reviewed in The Guardian and the New York Times.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So they're you know how we used to go into bookstores and there'd be a category called literature and another category called fiction, right?
Oh, I didn't know that. That must have been a British thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
probably was. So you can imagine what
Yeah.
the difference is. Literature is what you might
Yeah.
study in college, and
Yeah.
fiction is what
Okay.
you read at night when you're bored with your
Right.
boyfriend or whatever it is, right? So I these are the sorts of books that would be in between literature
Hmm.
and fiction.
Yeah.
Right? It's conceivable that there might be a sort of feminist class on popular fiction where this
Right.
kind of stuff would be there, but it's not pulp and it's trade but not mass market, I would say, in political economic terms.
Right.
But anyway,
Yeah, I read one of those, not, this didn't have a strong sexual component, but one of those kind of in between literature and fiction, which was Yesteryear, which was a very, very popular book about, a woman who, kind of a trad wife, uh,
okay, yeah.
that sort of thing, a trad wife who then seems to get put back in time to actually have to live like a pioneer. I mean, that's the
Oh,
conceit.
that's
I mean, it's not,
I don't know this one.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's not good. It's really
Okay.
not good. But it was a thing that people were talking about. So I read it. But again, it's not something that, qualifies as, but I am a snob about things in the sense that I do tend to look for award-winning, fiction. So
Right,
it'll be
right.
Booker Prize. Although I know people who say if it got the Booker Prize, I won't read it. But I do look for that kind of because I'm interested and I don't mind kind of quasi-experimental stuff. So that's been interesting to
Yep,
me.
yep.
As far as impeding me, well, I do have to talk about living in America.
Mhm.
I mean, in addition to whatever, using the Yiddish word mishigas, whatever kind of stuff um, is bothering you personally.
Yeah.
I'm no youngster. I mean, there's issues that come at my stage of my life. Living here on a daily basis, you are just inundated by things you cannot believe. I mean, today, yesterday, I guess it was the Supreme Court sort of tabling, the notion of whether Trump can kind of question mail-in ballots. There was a hold on what he wants to do about mail-in ballots, which is check, citizenship, have every state have to look at citizenship records and check every name to see whether, you're allowed to get your mail-in ballot. And then today it's that he wants to call the Lake Ontario Lake America, because I mean and level the lawn of the outside the White House so that it matches the new helipad, but the whole election thing is very, very worrisome. The midterms are coming in just a couple, what's going to happen with all this crazy election stuff and whether our votes are going to count. And then 2 years till the presidential election, and that gives a lot of time to screw up. So there is a way that it obstructs your psyche on a
Mm,
daily
mhm.
basis. It's like another layer of worry. In addition, not to mention other things. I have two. My son is a lawyer in the public sector. My daughter-in-law is a lawyer in the public sector. She, in particular, might be losing a job because the funding in the public sector has been cut off. My son's job is more secure, but all of that, we know people um, who have or heard about people losing jobs because of money now. So that's a broad kind of obstructing that I can do precious little about, except it's funny that I barely can watch Bill Maher anymore because he's getting more and more conservative. But he interviewed on one of his shows. Evidently, stoicism has become a big thing. I have no idea why, but sometimes I think, I should be just stoic about this stuff. You have to learn to table some of it, or it just eats you up. But the other thing that's more personal is, I'm living now in Pittsburgh in a over 100-year-old house that eventually we will have to sell. I mean, it's like 4 stories. We've got a basement, a first floor, a second floor, a third floor that's like a finished attic kind of, but it's a usable floor. So, I can still do all that, go up and down and all of that. But eventually, we're going to sell it. 40 or so years of stuff. Academic, I mean, there's the academic stuff. I mean, I'm of the generation that has monstrous reams of paper, first of all, right? So it's been emptying. I mean, I have finally started just taking drawers of file cabinets and just barely looking at stuff and just throwing it out. But what it does psychologically is I look at thick file folders of class preparation that I did, with sometimes even handwritten lecture notes, often then typed, then computer printed, my screening notes, my printouts of articles, I mean, the amount of what lawyers called work product, that went into each class. And then you're throwing it out because when am I, half the stuff I'm never going to look back on and use. But it's hard to do that. You know what I mean? There are lectures I gave that I can't even remember. There are classes I gave that I can't even remember, but you have to, at a certain period of your life, go through that stuff. And, nobody's been asking for the Lucy Fisher archive. It's not being built, on the mall in Washington. I mean, Trump hasn't suggested that. So you have to go through it, but it's so emotional to sort of have to go through that and and then the other thing I thought of the other day was that I'm of the generation that went through handwritten text, typewritten, probably manual and electric. Then there were computer dot matrix, and then whatever else came, laser and all of that. But then all the different, I also found that was throwing away all the different means in which we stored our work that are no longer useful. So there are, what was this, 5-inch floppies, zip drives, all of that stuff. Who's using those? I don't even know what was on what I was throwing away, but I don't have a zip drive anymore. So what's the use of it? I threw it all away. And then the other thing I thought about was the different visual means that we use, laser discs, VHS. I threw out unbelievable numbers of VHS tapes where I had even edited excerpts onto the VHS tape. Because if I gave a lecture somewhere, which, I'm not doing a lot of, who has a VHS player? So, we went through so many overhead projectors using transparencies, slides. I mean, my generation went through, I can't believe how many means of storage, display, all of that. And I had to sort of rehearse that. And that's been difficult, not to mention the personal stuff. I went through, I had kept um, drawers of my son's artwork from like elementary school. I even found that I had kept some of his spelling tests. I mean, what was that about? And so I had to go through all of that. It's like and other stuff. I went through like some silver-plated coffee server sets that I don't know if it was my grandmother's or whatever that nobody wants anymore. So what I'm saying is that what's impeding me aside from the general political situation is I'm at that point of my life where, in addition to whatever I'm doing moving forward, which I am doing, I exercise, I do all sorts of things, but you also have to be considering, unless you've done a better job than I have in constantly purging, you also have to look back at your whole academic career and everything else. So that's what's impeding. It's like it's a dry heave each day to say, like, which draw am I looking at today? Um, books too, books. I already got rid of a ton of books, but they just reproduce. I just have more and more. So you've moved a couple of times. Did you at each stage kind of purge stuff, or are you still toting around
I
tons of?
twice. So when I left LA to move to Britain in 2014, no, sorry, when I moved from New York to LA in 2004-5, I decided as a welcoming gift to the school where I was teaching to give them all my film books that I,
Uh-huh.
including works by L. Fisher, I should say.
Okay. Yeah.
I just thought I was supposed to start this new department, and it would be great if they had all my holdings, not named as such, but
Mhm.
a lot of these books that they mightn't have. So I gave them all of those. When I left LA to go to London in 2014, I gave away every book I owned to LA Community College. Now, this is
Mhm.
something that wouldn't be available to you in 2026 and onwards
Mhm.
because libraries don't want
They
books,
don't want books.
but
Oh,
it was
yeah.
still available to me. And so
Yeah.
everything except books that I was involved in, books my father had been involved in, White Noise, all of Raymond Chandler,
Mm. Yeah.
all of Hammett, and all of Foucault. And
Yeah.
I don't have any of them. I haven't had access to those books for 7 years. They're at a friend's place in Norwich, in
Hmm.
England. And the reason why she's very kindly prepared to put up with them is that she was moving and didn't have anything. And I said, well, you can have my bed and my silverware and my artworks, but would
Yeah.
you take a few hundred
Yeah.
books?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
She said, actually, that would be great. So
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
pro quo is that she got basic furniture,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And tools, as it were. And I got
Yeah.
things looked after. So, yes,
Yeah.
two big purges. And I've had to move a lot since. I mean, I love the physical book very much,
Yeah.
but the books that I've been talking about to you that I've mentioned, I've generally only had in digital form, which I regard
Yeah.
as vastly inferior as a reading experience, but practical for my purposes.
Right. It is practical. Yeah. No, it is very practical. And I love the fact that I can go to the digital books. But
Yeah.
yeah. But
So
it was part of the paperwork of, what kills me is that now, what if you were if you were starting out in academics today, you wouldn't have a job. So let's say that.
yes,
But if you were and you had a job, you could put your academic work in a shoebox with a bunch of thumb drives.
yes.
I mean, you could have a shoebox instead of, I don't know how many four-drawer file cabinets we have. I mean, and my husband's an academic too, so it's like times
Oh,
two.
wow.
It's really bad.
Now, Prof, I,
Yeah.
I've not read it, but this book, The Cinema of Converging Lives,
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you about because my parents ran away from other marriages, and one of their romantic alibis was brief encounter.
Hmm.
And I suspect that that accidental convergence that happens in the
Yeah.
film um, is, with all its frustrations, it's a British film from the late 40s.
Right.
No,
Hmm.
mid 40s. It's right after the war, isn't it, that it comes out, I think.
Yeah, I don't know the precise year.
But it's
Right.
45 or 46. There's a huge statue in St. Pancras now that a lot of people find repulsive. It's
Hmm.
30 feet high, that is about their meeting at the station. Um, and it became a sort of justification that my parents, particularly my mother,
Hmm.
told themselves about leaving other people.
Hmm. Yeah.
I wondered if you could tell us a bit about the book in terms of what it does, in terms of chance meetings or whatever.
Yeah. Well, what I tried to do, I mean, was also categorize, if I can even remember my book, um, categorize, I should go get a copy, um, categorize the different causations of one thing that I tried to do. First of all, some of the films that I considered were, for example, 21 Grams. Do you know that film?
Yes,
Yeah.
and there's a remake, isn't or a second version, isn't there?
Oh, maybe there's a second version. I
Current,
love the
yeah,
first. I
current,
love the
yeah.
first version. But a lot of the ones that I consider are not as wonderful as chance meetings that fall turn into love. Although 21 Grams has a love story, but
Right.
the crazy kind of conjunction of someone who needs a heart, a man and his children who get run over by a car, the person who runs them over and the surviving wife, being all these people who converge because of this one car accident, you know, um, and how those characters work together. I also looked. I did some. Um, so what I tended to do is categorize them also by causation. So one of the causations was accident, and something like 21 gram, and actually a lot of the accidents are car accidents. So that would have been
Yes.
categorized in terms of accidents. And another one was Crash, the film in which um, uh, a whole bunch of things happen in LA because of crashes. And different people meet different people because of car crashes. So what I tried to do, because a lot of people like David Wardwell and other individuals who write on narrative structure had talked about all these different kinds of narrative structures, one of which was sort of crossing paths. But what people hadn't done was try to talk about the different causations
Hmm.
that can lead to crossing paths. So one of them would have been accident. One of them, for example, coincidence. In certain cases, I looked at films that were where the convergence was through coincidence, and then also history. So what in case of history, I did want, like, for example, one night in Miami, where Malcolm X, Cassius Clay, and oh God, I'm forgetting the name of the football player. all converge in a hotel in Miami the night of Cassius Clay's fight, you know. So it was actually a historical circumstance that led to the convergence of these men. And I also did another film called Mudbound about a southern town, a very racist southern town, but two returning soldiers, one white and one black, who really never would have become friends in the normal situation in that southern town because of the historical circumstance of their being vets, the only two people in that town who understand the trauma of World War II,
Right.
meet and become very, very close. I mean, there's a tragic ending to all of it. So that was, so there would be accident, coincidence, historical circumstance. I also did a chapter on the supernatural. In some films, it's like a supernatural thing that sort of brings people together. So I tried to classify them more in terms of causation,
Hmm.
which had not been done. Rather, what had been done was, this kind of analysis of every imaginable narrative type. So, and what sort of started it on some level was my own rather terrible experience that made me very conscious of the sort of Russian roulette of two converging forces, which is in 2021. I was visiting my son who lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I was walking my dog and I got hit by a car to the two, was in the hospital for 2 months with every imaginable break and horrible kind of circumstance. But it was like, Russian roulette, this car, this person,
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
it was a little bit like 21 grams, except luckily I didn't die, Oh, and then one other was chance. And I did a film by Paul Auster about gamblers kind of converging. Um, so I did Chance, and so that was the film about gamblers. So that was kind of what I did
Oh,
to the
wonderful.
extent that I can remember it at all. Yeah,
Well, I'm not going to take you back, as they say in baseball commentary, to your early
yeah.
books, but I did want to ask you about something that in a way relates to this conceptually, which is your book, Emotion Pictures,
Mm-hmm.
feelings.
Mm-hmm.
The word affect has become
Yeah.
very à la mode
Yeah,
in
I know.
a lot of academic work. And people often get cross if you associate it with feelings or emotions for reasons
Mm-hmm.
that are not entirely clear to me. But I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that study and what interests you about
Yeah.
emotion and symbol.
Well, where I get impatient with, I mean, in kind of common sense language, not academic theoretical language, affect and feeling are kind of synonymous. You know
Mm.
what I mean? In the sort of language of every day, although maybe every day people don't use the word affect, but where I, on a theoretical level, have gotten impatient with affect theory is that it largely reduces down to that which we cannot describe, that which is so amorphous that it is indescribable, kind of language can't deal with it. It's kind of in the vapors. And to my mind, that's just if language can't describe it, why write about it?
This is
I
your
mean,
inner Wittgenstein and your inner truck driver coming out together.
that what?
This is your inner Wittgenstein and your inner truck driver both emerging and saying,
Oh,
enough
tell
already. That of which we do not know, we should not speak, right?
well, to some degree, since we are critics and we are writing, I don't want to constantly write about that which I cannot say.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, first of all, I've been in my whole academic career aside from feminism, which, I did not join a trend. I felt it very sincerely,
Mm.
particularly given my age and kind of what I went through as a woman. Um, but I don't join, it's like I don't want to be a member of any club that would have me as a member, that kind of. I don't join the trends. I really question them.
Mm.
And when they don't make sense to me, I don't. I'm very, very down to earth in my writing. I mean, one of the things people have always said is that I can take complicated things and make them clear. I never tried to obfuscate. I'm very suspicious of obfuscating in the name of when it doesn't have to be. Okay. So a lot of affect theory leaves me cold. And so what I try to do in emotion pictures is really down to earth discussions of emotions and to some degree how they, films that I thought took on one emotion and just ran with it. And there aren't that many films that do that actually, because most films are a bundle of emotions. That's what makes them kind of interesting. And what I did to some degree was also go to more traditional psychology, not Freudian psychology, but, um, and sort of look at what psychologists have said about the emotions and, and work with some of that. But I also tried to talk about how the films, particularly, um, sort of try to promote that emotion also in the viewer as well. And so sometimes, let's say, the use of handheld camera, giving the sense of being very close to the subject, and all of that. And I guess the other thing I felt was that a lot, a lot of earlier film studies, during the period when the sort of Marxist approach to film studies was very, very dominant, and the Brechtian approach and all of that. Melodrama was out because, it was the bourgeois art form, and emotion was out because emotion was that which interfered with intellectual thinking. So, this was kind of to say, and I never really totally bought that because I really thought that in general, people respond so much. And I don't think it was always a bad thing. But to some degree, I think affect theory in its kind of refusal to really talk about emotion was sort of not giving credit
Mm.
to feeling. It
Mm.
was another way of saying we're not going to talk about it because it's not speakable. Well, I don't buy that. So I really kind of used the term affect, you know, in a more general way, a more down to earth kind of way. And in general, I guess in general, I sometimes feel like obfuscation is a way to make people look smart when
Mm.
they're not.
When they're not. And in terms of your drawing on your own experience of watching films and others' critical
Yeah.
writings about them and psychology's account, what were the key emotions that you derived from all of this or you put into this
In
project?
the book,
Hmm.
uh, it was grief, pity. Oh God, I really should have my books in front of me. It's like jealousy. Those were three that I dealt with.
Right.
Yeah, I can't even remember all the other ones, but films about, yeah, grief, pity, jealousy, love. I can't remember what else. Films that in a singular kind of way, hatred. Uh, anyway,
Well, that is incredibly broad, isn't it?
yeah.
Quite amazing. And the films you look at include
Hmm.
Moonlight, adaptation, as,
Hmm.
as you mentioned, 21 grams with reference to another
Yeah, well, 21 grams was in the other in the Converging Lives.
as well, but it's guilt
Right.
in your.
Yeah, no, I've always been interested in it's why I've never been able to be pigeonholed, which is in some ways a bad career move. You know what I mean? It's a bad career move to write about everything because nobody knows who you are or what you are. But I do have a very wide love of cinema. So all my books involve films from a wide variety of countries, some more, conventional, some more experimental. I mean, I've really, early cinema. If I look at my career, I've written on early cinema like The Lady Vanishes, and avant-garde cinema. I've written on, Hollis Frampton and James Broughton and Maya Deren, but I've also written on conventional melodrama like, you know, uh, Imitation of Life or Sunrise,
Yeah.
um, and on the area where I was most out on a limb was my books on kind of cinema and design movements. I was interested in both Art Deco and Art Nouveau. And I wrote about, two books, one on Art Deco and cinema, nobody was writing about that stuff. It was like, but I guess I've just always followed that which really moves me or interests me, but it's very, very diverse.
And you've mentioned gender a couple of times, Prof. I wondered if we
Mhm.
could talk a little bit about that. And uh, as you said, this is connected in part to the work on design. You
Mhm.
wrote Designing Women, but a long, long time ago, you wrote Cinematernity, Film
Right.
and
Hmm.
Motherhood, right?
Hmm.
You look at Rosemary's Baby and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, High Heels, uh,
Yeah. White
so
Heat, I think I looked
High
at. Yeah.
Heat, yeah,
Yeah.
uh, High Tide, History and
Hmm.
Memory. But you've also indicated in a passing comment a moment or two ago that gender was a factor in your career as well.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
wondered if you wanted to reflect a bit on A, writing about gender issues, but
Yeah.
B, what it's like, what it was like, what it could be like for women in terms of the profession.
Yeah, well, it's also, I think I was also talking about growing up when I grew up, which I grew up, before the women's movement and nobody in my family, my parents didn't go to, didn't have a college degree. Nobody in my family, I think one person in my family had a PhD, a cousin of mine. Not when I started my PhD, but by the end,
Mhm.
But that's not what I was supposed to do as a girl. You know what I mean? I was supposed to go to college. I mean, my parents did want me to go to college, but they never imagined me, oh, I did what I was supposed to do for a while. I got a Master of Arts in Teaching at the University of Pennsylvania so I could teach in the public school system. For a while, I did what I was supposed to do. That's what I was supposed to do.
Mm.
Have that kind of a career. And the only thing that I mean, I sort of enjoyed it. I taught at an all boys school for about 4 years. And believe me, after that, there was no college student that would ever give me any trouble. I mean, I knew classroom management. But it did give me enough money to go to graduate school. That was the benefit of that. Um, but I wasn't supposed to do that. You know what I mean? My parents thought I was completely nuts when I quit this job in New York City that paid very well. I probably would have been retired by the time I was 40, you know. So there's that also about, growing up in this era way prior to the women's movement. And then in terms of the academic world, I do remember that at NYU Cinema Studies, most of the favored graduate students were male, that maybe with one exception. Um, and I basically shut up for most of my,
Mm.
graduate training. I don't, I'm somebody who likes to talk, and I had talked all through undergraduate, but, and uh, so, I mean, there was that kind of situation,
Mm.
I think. And I also feel even, as a professor, I always thought I had to sort of grow a film studies program within an English department, which was a kind of dicey thing to do before I had tenure, because, you wrinkle a few feathers. Can feathers be wrinkled? I don't know what that is. But, it's not easy to do because there's always opposition. But I felt on some level that it was harder as a woman to take stronger positions and not be resented for it than had I been a man. You know what I mean? It's the kind of don't be so strident. You know what I mean? I don't think a man would ever have been told that, whereas there were times I was considered strident, you know. I mean, I'm 4'11", I'm not exactly a very imposing figure. It might have had something to do with being a New Yorker too, no, but whatever the case, I think there was something of that, you know. I think that all women, there weren't that many women professors in my department. Um, I can't, I wasn't mistreated, or anything like that. But I certainly felt the feminist moment because of having grown up when I did,
Yeah.
when I was not expected. And when I was kind of expected to just get married and have a baby, I mean, that was what was supposed to happen, and also the other thing was I realized that, retrospectively, that, in my literature classes, I'm not sure I was ever assigned a female writer, you know, that, all of that kind of stuff that suddenly hits you. Nobody can believe it when you say that you were never assigned a female writer. It's only something you realize when suddenly the question of female authors, female filmmakers comes into play. But, when you're in that position, ideology is what's natural. So the gender thing definitely was something I truly, the whole issue of feminism and gender issues was something I totally believed in and felt personally
Yeah.
very strongly.
And in terms of some of the themes in films, that's been a repeated concern of yours
Yeah.
over the years. I mentioned cinematernity, but also the uh, design, the
Yes.
of the you've done a couple of design books. One of them,
Right.
Designing Women. Uh,
Right.
so I
Right.
want to
Because that's right. Yeah.
talk about some
Because
of the textual concerns as well that you've had about women and representation, which by now is in a way, a standard theme in a lot of
Mhm.
film studies, media studies, cultural studies, but it wasn't always. And at times it gets negated in favor of other forms of identity or in favor of different ways of thinking about film. You've already mentioned the way in which melodrama was discounted by
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Marx.
the Brechtian kind of view that it
Yeah, where
was.
everything must be
Mhm.
contra realism, everything must be, in inverted commas, difficult.
Right, and intellectual. Yeah, well, what interested me about, let's say, the Art Deco, I mean, both Art Nouveau and Art Deco are obsessed with the figure of woman.
Mm.
And I have a lot of objects of that kind in my house.
Aha.
But yeah, it's kind
Will
of,
they make it into the next
I don't
accommodation?
know. I
Ah,
don't know.
okay.
But what hit me with the why I wrote a lot in the Art Deco book, in particular about Greta Garbo, was that to some degree, I mean, not exclusively, but she was one of the actresses that became, in some of her films, associated kind of with the Art Deco woman because, she was svelte, but she wasn't buxom. She was kind of, I mean, that classic, profile, the neck, it was all very sculptural and also a kind of androgynous sometimes. And the Art Deco woman was kind of not the voluptuous kind of woman of earlier sort of movements. The Art Nouveau woman was more voluptuous, but the Art Deco woman was scaled down, industrial kind of woman. And the other thing that I found, I mean, I was particularly enamored with a couple of her films, The Kiss, which was a silent film, and The Single Standard. In those films, she was also, the Art Deco woman was also a dangerous woman. She lived in a kind of Art Deco home that was avant-garde and in its design, but she was also a dangerous woman in that she could have affairs, she could do things that other kinds of. So I sort of saw the kind of Art Deco image and modernity when it was attached to a woman as kind of a danger signal, which interested me particularly. Yeah, in one of her films, she has an affair with a lawyer, but then is accused of killing her husband. And she ends up, actually, she did kill her husband. We know that she killed her husband, but she's let go. The trial finds her not guilty. We know she's guilty. And she can walk off with her lawyer, who's the man she had an affair with, and everything's fine. And some scrub women in the courthouse say at the end something like, if we all had our way, we'd kill all our husbands. I mean, that's the end of the film. I mean, it was kind of amazing, sort of, the film. So that interested me a lot, in one particular thing. But then I also wrote articles like about Sunset Boulevard and the aging woman, and the whole Gloria Swanson and the aging woman, and which also affected to some degree my writing on The Gleaners, the film The Gleaners by Agnes Varda, which is also to some degree about her aging as well.
Yeah.
About feeling like a discard, because the gleaners glean the fruit and the vegetables that are the discards, and in various points in The Gleaners, she looks at herself in the mirror and notices her hair is thinning and notices the spots on her hands and things like that. So I still have found those, The Gleaners is a more recent. The thing I didn't like was, I've tended to want to talk about really interesting films that also have some stylistic interest. The Gleaners absolutely does. And so did these Greta Garbo films. What I didn't like was as soon as I feel like people are cranking out, like here's the template for feminism, and I'm going to crank it out and I'm going to put it on this film, and here's the template. You know, just sort of looking for the obvious stuff. That bored me. So it's kind of like I have to feel an interest and moved by a particular film, not just to say, okay, well, here's a film with the plot, and obviously women are demeaned, so let's write about it, because that becomes, it's self-evident.
Yes, and very rote, and it can be very unfortunate. One of the things I've always found frustrating, Prof, is that on the one hand, textual analysis gives a very deep appreciation of phenomena, but without a broader context, it's not clear
Hmm.
how representative it is.
Yeah, that's
Firstly,
true.
content analysis, which is systematic and can tell you over, the body of work of a filmmaker or a national cinema or a genre, all sorts of things about how many times certain things recur. But it is just trying to put things together in order to count them up without thinking
Yeah,
about the more profound hermeneutic component. And
yeah,
so I've
right.
always wanted to see a world in which somehow or other, and some people have done this, one can combine those things, the bravura reading with the systematic accounting. And I think that's one of the sadnesses for me that I never got involved in that kind of project. But in any event, Prof, I had one more question for you, if
Okay,
you may. And when you've answered it, I'd also like to give you the opportunity to add anything you may wish.
okay.
And the addition could take the form of something entirely new that we haven't discussed, or of some area that we have touched on, but where you want to say something else. Does that sound okay as a
Sure.
conclusion? So my last question is, and this is a very cruel query. This is not a nice thing to ask.
Okay.
What's your favorite book that you've written and why?
Oh God. Yikes.
It's like, which child do you love the most?
Yeah, no, oh God.
I know it's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, I, oof. Um, mm, my next book. Touche,
Yeah, no,
touche.
you win. And
Yeah.
I actually think, I know that's a
Mm.
rhetorical move, but I think it's a wonderful answer anyway, not only because it's funny, but also because it is what's required in order to write a book. To
Yeah,
think there's
right,
something there that you need to say, and in large form, in long form. So
right,
that's a great
right.
answer.
Yeah, well, it's also that I'm self-denigrating, so it's very hard for me to, say anything that I like anything I've done. But anyway,
Well,
yeah.
the books of yours that I've read, one or two of which I've taught with, are wonderful. So I can say that,
Mhm. Yeah,
even though you aren't
thanks.
going to.
Yeah.
What about anything you'd like to add, Prof?
I don't know. Well, that I like that you call me Prof. I don't think I've been called Prof before. Um, no, I don't think there's anything that I want to add. I guess I would ask you, do you go to conferences or did you ever like conferences?
I used to go because I was director of graduate studies in a department, and I felt as though, especially because I had
Yeah,
not gone to graduate school in the United States and I was pretty new to the country, that I should find out about what people seemed to be
right.
doing. And one way of doing that was to read journals, but another way was to go to events. So I went to
Yeah,
a lot of professional association conferences so that I would be, I thought, able to give sound overviews, even advice to people
right. Now that makes a lot of
coming through
sense.
the system. So I did a lot of it and I enjoyed it. And I
Hmm.
found the people there. I met you at a Society for
Hmm.
Cities conference, for
Yeah.
example. I found that people there were very open and welcoming and
Hmm.
friendly and interesting. And this applied to relatively small things in terms of numbers, as the Society for Cinema Studies was, and gigantic things as well,
Hmm.
like the Modern Language Association.
Oh, yeah, right.
I found
Yeah.
people quite welcoming, quite friendly, even though the scale
Yeah.
was obviously complex. So, yes, I used to go to them. I don't really go anymore.
Yeah. Neither do I.
I don't get asked and I
Hmm.
don't push myself forward. So
Hmm.
it's not part of my world anymore. And
Yeah.
in some ways, the last few times I've gone to them, I have felt very invisible.
Hmm.
I didn't feel very invisible when I arrived at them for the first time and nobody knew me.
Yeah.
But now
Yeah.
perhaps I want people to know me and nobody does. And this is well captured. You'll like this anecdote. I was once walking through one of those big conference hotels, and uh, I had my little badge on,
Hmm.
and a woman who was got quite close to me and stared at my badge, and then looked up at me and said, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I wanted to see whether you were somebody worth speaking to."
Oh my
And
God.
quickly moved on. But that
Was that Society for Cinema Studies or something else?
I don't know, honestly can't
Yeah,
remember. But my
yeah,
point is that a lot of
yeah.
that goes on, not as
I
overtly
know.
as
I
with
know.
that lady, but it
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. I can't
Happens.
believe it actually happened. Usually people are more subtle about
I
it, but
know, but I
yeah.
sort of loved her for it, actually,
Yeah.
particularly because she
Right.
was about 3 inches away from me. Maybe she was short-sighted.
Yeah.
No,
Right. It's kind of like when people sort of stare down at your chest, you know.
right.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
I
know.
thought, yes, there's a certain truth there that she's bringing forth.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't go anymore either. So I was just curious if I was an anomaly. But I think, after retirement, a lot of people don't go. It's also expensive, when you think about it, to fly, if you don't have support anymore from your university,
That's
to
right. That's a
go.
factor. And also just the sense that these are things that should be in the grip of mid-career and early career people.
Yeah.
And if they want
Right.
you there, that you're not hard to find.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, thank you so much, Toby. This has
Oh,
been great.
thank you. It's been really wonderful reconnecting. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed it. And I've learned so much from your writings over the years, in the times when I had more access to them than I do now because of
Yeah, that's too bad.
being in
Yeah.
the global south. But I've really enjoyed them. And I promised that I wouldn't ask you about your Lady Vanishes essay, even though you mentioned the film.
Yeah.
I went back and read it. It is from 1979, and
Yeah.
one can already see just what a wonderful analyst and writer you were back in those days. And it's lovely to get a sense of where things are happening for you now. And we need to sit down sometime and talk about these British spy slash
I know. You wrote a whole book on it.
shows that
Yeah,
we really like.
I
That's
know.
really fun. Maybe we should do another podcast where we get some other people to talk about
Okay.
who might be a bit more critical than we are.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm a fan.
I know,
Yeah.
I bit
I
off.
take off my critical hat when I watch that stuff,
No, I
so,
know.
but
So
no, I'd be happy to do it. I'd be
let,
happy to think about
let's
it.
think about it, both of us. See if we can
Okay.
think of some interesting interlocutors who would be young and hungry to tear it
Right.
down, the edifice that we've so
Okay.
innocently constructed for ourselves. All right, lovely to chat.
Okay. Thank you so
Many,
much.
many thanks.
Okay.